All right, welcome back. We're going to take a look at spinners and area models. All right, so let's say ASB has a new promotion and we have 2 spinners. You get to spin the wheel for your lunch. So the first wheel is split up like this. It's going to go straight up and down through the center, and this part's going to be out there. So if you land in this section, you get a small item. If you land in this section, you get a large item. And if you land in this section, you'll get a medium item. And then after you spin this, you get to spin this spinner. And the 2 items that they're giving away is a pizza and a tomato. Doesn't that sound fabulous? All right, so the question that I have is A, what's the probability that you win a large pizza? And B, what's the probability that you win a small tomato? So just like in the previous lesson, we're going to set up an area model. So we're going to ask ourselves, what are the 2 things that we're talking about? Well, the first one is the size of the item. So we're going to label that size. It could be small, medium, or large. The second item that we're talking about is the food. What kind of food am I going to win? Well, I could either win a pizza or a tomato. So just like before, we'll build the box. And because I have 3 items here, I'm going to need to split it into 3 sections. And these are my 2 items here. All right, so now we need to put in the probabilities. Well, we have a slight problem because there are no probabilities in the spinner. However, we do know how spinners are, we know some stuff about circles. Spinners are just circles. So I'm going to slide this up just a little bit, and we're going to take a look at breaking down a spinner so that we can find the probabilities. So the first thing I'd like us to take a look at is when I draw, I'll use a different color here. When I draw a circle, I know something about circles, the degree measures in a circle. Going all the way around, circles go 360 degrees. So if I were to cut this circle in half, the measurement from the center going this way is just half of 360, which is 180 degrees. So if I were to talk about probability, I would say the probability of landing in this section is going to be 180 out of 360. Well, if you look up here, I'm going to slide this back up, that's the same as this right here. So in other words, I know the probability of landing in this section is 180 out of 360. All right, let's continue on. So I could break this up even further. If this is 180, I can split, this side's also 180. I can split this side in half. So if this is 180 and I cut it in half, this angle measurement is 90, or 90 out of 360. So the probability I land in this section right here is 90 out of 360. So that's a real common way to break up a spinner. Another way to break up a spinner is, I'm going to go ahead and just cut it in half again. So this side's, ooh, that was a crooked line. This side is 180, but let's say I kind of chunk it off here, like that. Regardless of what I put here, let's say I put 60 here, I can always find this missing piece here, because this, I know, has to add up to 180. So if I give you one piece, I can always find the other piece by taking 180 minus 60, which is equal to 120. So the probability that I fall in this section is going to be 120 out of 360. So that kind of just gives you an idea of how circles work and how I can use the degree measurements of a circle in order to assign probabilities to those sections. So let's move back up to our original spinners. So going up here, this angle was cut, this was cut in half, so this is going to be 90 out of 360. So that's a probability that I get a tomato. So the rest of it has got to be 360 minus 90, which would give me 270 out of 360. I could also find this section here. If I told you that this was, we'll go ahead and do like we did below, 60, and I told you this would have to be what? Good, it's 120. So I didn't put out a 360 because I didn't have enough room, but I'm going to go ahead and put that into my table. So the probability that I get a small item is going to be 180 out of 360. The probability I get a medium item is going to be 120 out of 360. And finally, the large item is 60 out of 360. So that's a probability that my spinner randomly falls in one of these sections. Going on to the food item, my tomato is going to be 90 out of 360. And my pizza is going to be 270 out of 360. All right, now that I have the probabilities associated on the sides, I can answer the questions. So what's the probability of getting a large pizza? Well, here's large, here's pizza. I'm just going to work my way in here. So these are the two probabilities that I'm going to multiply together. So it's going to be 90 over 360 times 60 over 360. Okay, these are really large numbers, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and use my calculator. So we have 90 divided by 360 times 60 divided by 360, which comes out to be this awful decimal. So one of the ways I could do is translate that back into a fraction by clicking on Math, that's right here underneath the green button, and just hitting Enter twice. And that converts my fraction, or my decimal, into a fraction. So that's going to be 1 over 24. So in other words, the probability that I get a large pizza is 1 out of 24. And if I want to look at the decimal number, there's a 4% chance, or 0.04 probability of getting a large pizza. So what's the probability of getting a small tomato? Well, I'm going to do the same thing. We're going to take 270 over 360 times 180 over 360. Again, we're going to use the calculator. 270 divided by 360 times 180 divided by 360. I get a decimal. I'm going to hit Math, Enter, Enter, and it's going to convert to 3 out of 8. So unfortunately, there's a better chance of me getting a small tomato. There's a 38% chance of that happening. But the probability of that is 3 out of 8. And just for fun, I could write it down. I'm just going to say we want to write all of our probabilities in terms of fractions, but we could say there's a 37% chance, or 38 if I rounded it. And then there's also a 4% chance of getting that. All right. Okay, if you want to, you could practice and get those values in there. And I'll go ahead and let you do that on your own, and you can compare with your teacher later. All right. Thanks for watching.